there's a really good book called The Buddha Pill, which I've wanted to read for a while, that states 60% of those that go on a meditation retreat have at least one side effect, which is really fascinating. But in addition to that, you say, you talk about how some NDEs are of the same ilk as Kundalini energy. And can you kind of explain this for us, how that overlap kind of takes place there? That's really fascinating.
Yeah. So the thing is, people that have near-death experiences, a lot of what they describe and experience, even after they have this experience, it's very, it's very metaphysical sometimes, and it's very similar to people who endure Kundalini awakening. Much of the symptoms are the same, not always the really, bad symptoms, but like the more euphoric stuff. And it changes their outlook too on life, and it kind of leads them down a path of being, believing more of the metaphysical. So for example, like this just goes to show. So this is somebody having a Kundalini awakening. Let me just go to the page because I'm going to read this from my book. So this is from the International Association for Near-Death Studies. This is what somebody writes in their experience. In 1974, I activated Kundalini through meditation, but I did not know what I was doing. It erupted big time and blew my mind away. It was scary. I had a health problem in my ears, and I was in a very bad car accident, so I meditated several hours a day. I first noticed Kundalini rising in my head. It slowly moved down to my tailbone. After that, all hell broke loose. My heart stopped beating, and I stopped breathing. I said, "Oh, Jesus," and all of a sudden, I popped out of my body. The next thing I knew, I was hovering over a shore about 100 to 300 feet in the air. I could see the water. It was deep blue and the sand was white. I didn't see any people. Across the water, I saw a mountain range with trees and grass. I thought, this looks nice. Then I noticed I couldn't see my body. I got a mental impression like someone was telling me that my body was back on planet Earth. I said, "Where am I?" The voice said, "You're on another planet." "What about my body?" I asked. The answer I got was, "If they find it, they'll bury it like any other dead body." Then I said, "This is what's known as death." I thought that this was a strange turn of events. I looked across the lake and saw a white sailboat. I wanted to go to it and see if any people were on it. Then the voice said, "You can't stay. You're not done yet." I thought, done with what? The next thing I knew, I was back in my body grasping for air, and then my heart started pounding. So, this is a perfect example of someone's Kundalini experience. It sounds like a near-death experience. And that's the thing, is that I feel like Kundalini is tampering with certain physiological processes in the body that's actually bringing on a death experience. It's loosening that veil between life and death, and between, supernatural and normal. I have a couple articles here talking, comparing like the Kundalini with the near-death experiences. So according to this one article, it says here, according to Sri Ramakrishna, a man's spiritual consciousness is not awakened unless his Kundalini is aroused. Kundalini is an evolutionary biology, which I think is interesting, that word alone, evolutionary biology. Kundalini is also the motivating catalyst behind the transcendent experience. It's the key to changing our state of being. How? Kundalini stimulates neuroplastic activity in the brain, and consequently the ability to see and experience life beyond the material physical dimension. How do we know this? The effects induced by Kundalini are akin to those of near-death experience. Kundalini shares a series of effects with the NDE. NDEers frequently return from their experience with residual knowledge of metaphysical. How do we know this? Of the metaphysical dimension. What's striking is that these types of experiences are commonplace and one to another, very similar in nature, in spite of the individual's age, cultural background, geographic location, or religion. The individual returns with a greater understanding of his or her connectedness, enhanced creative impulses, the appearance of a strong white light, and the intense certainty that there is no death. Basically, it says, if NDEers can experience superconsciousness in a brain-dead state, why not suppose that Kundalini practitioners with their super-stimulated brains could experience a much greater set of meta-normal effects? And if they experience super or cosmic consciousness, wouldn't this activity actually transform DNA over time? A super form of neuroplasticity that ultimately influences evolution by modifying DNA. Which is interesting and kind of makes you wonder why they're pushing this. Why is this pushed everywhere? Are they trying to change our DNA?
Yeah.
Which they're already trying to do with many other methods, with plants, animals.
Not all NDEs line up with the word of God. And so
Right.
I find that to be really fascinating because there's a deceptive factor there that can come with an NDE. And I have never heard of that particular hypothesis before. And it makes a lot of sense to me. There's
Mhm.
a lot of overlap there. And I think that it's a really good, I think it could very well show what's going on in a lot of these NDEs when people are, traveling to these other planets and getting and having these conversations with spirit guides and or aliens and those types of like new age types of NDEs. It seems to overlap a lot with the new age, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Kundalini effect here was at play.